Hi, and welcome to Rudy Sassoon's Science Fantasy Experience, and an episode of Let's Talk. Let's Talk is my thoughts, my opinions, my likes, my dislikes, and my experience of pop culture. So let's talk Action Force and G.I. Joe. So, whenever you bought a box toy, or even a carded toy back in the 80s, you got often a little pamphlet which sometimes had a poster on the back. But it really, the thing I liked the most was it showed what else was available on the line. Whenever you bought carded blister packs of figures, you always had, other figures in the range, especially when you bought Teenage Mutant Ninja or Hero Turtles. There was always a row of the ones that were available. And obviously, as the line progresses, those images would change. But with Action Force, you get a full giant showcase of what was available, along with extra sort of merchandise. You got t-shirts, dog tags, posters, and then your mail order forms. And it's something that's really missing from new toys at the moment. Power of the Primes kind of do it a little bit, and Combine Wars, they would show bits on the back of the card, other figures in the line, but it's only one or two, and it showed the varying scales. Your Deluxe, your Legends, your Voyager class. But this is just absolutely incredible and beautiful. The artwork is so beautifully drawn, and then as you go, you can see all the other bits, and they're done in a diorama. It's just, but no kid's going to have that sort of play set, but it just shows that what you can do with the figures, all of what's available in the line. And this came with my Havoc, which I'll get onto later on in the episode. So we're talking, I think the Havoc was maybe about 88. The Havoc came out. It's one of the later ones in the line. And then we've got even more merchandise you can get. A digital watch, cassette books, just loads and loads of good things. And as I said, it's something that's lacking in what happens with toys nowadays. I'd really love third-party toys to do that, but then again, they're super expensive, and it's another added expense to add to bits of paperwork with that. So, moving on to my experiences of Action Force and G.I. Joe. Let me take you back to 1985 and to my very first experience of Action Force and G.I. Joe. I keep referring to Action Force and G.I. Joe. It's purely pretty much Action Force for me because that's the UK name of it. And it obviously originally started with Action Man, and then Action Force. The logo was slightly different, or it all came from Palitoy, and it was very British. There was SAS figures, and then it got rebranded and bought out by Hasbro, and it became Action Force International Heroes. And obviously with the American version, G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. But yes, so 1985, a Saturday, and I am really, really ill. Both my parents had to work that day, so I was taken to Nana's house, the affectionate name for my grandma, and I practically was there all day, and I just wasn't really very well. I would have thought the majority of the day on the sofa just watching Saturday afternoon television. I definitely, 1 o'clock, I was watching Starfleet for definite, I would have thought, because it was shown for a good couple of years, Starfleet, in the early to mid 80s. But I don't remember much of the day, just because, as I said, I was really ill, and I just don't remember too much of the actual day. But I remember being picked up at, say, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when my mum and dad had both finished work, and they came to pick me up. And bundled into the car, and then I got home, got into the lounge, and my dad goes to me, "Here we go, because you've not been very well. Here's a little surprise." And it wasn't my, like, it wasn't my birthday. It wasn't near Christmas time. It just really wasn't any sort of special occasion. And he brings out this box, and it is the A.W.E Striker, which is the all-weather environment Jeep. So I'm going to use this as a good reference tool, actually. So let me find the A.W.E Striker, which, there it is. And it came with crankcase. And I have no idea what Action Force is at this time. It's 85. I'm fully in the zone of GoBots and Transformers and classic space Lego. So I'm looking at it with eyes wide open. I'm just like, oh, what is this? This is really, really exciting. And I'm not very well at the same time. And I'm like, oh, I'm really, really like in awe and kind of like about to be sick. And I'm absolutely overwhelmed with joy and excitement for this, because it's a new toy, and it's a toy I just had no idea what it was, and it looked really cool to me. And then we open up the box, and my face sinks, and I get really upset because it was in pieces. And even though I was building, little bits of Lego, I don't understand of, making things work and construction. I ended up going into a ball of tears because it wasn't ready for me to play with. Although we're talking about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening now, and it's pretty much my bedtime. I went to bed super early when I was a kid, like 6 o'clock, literally, I was in bed. And I start crying, and I get really upset. And this is what happens. I go off to bed, all upset, but I fall asleep. And I come downstairs in the morning, and there on the dining room table was a completely built A.W.E Striker, all stickered up, all fully built with crankcase in the driver's seat. And I can't believe it. My dad was so upset for me as well, because he just didn't like the fact that I was ready to play with this toy, and I couldn't before bedtime, and he spent the whole evening building it for me. And it was just such a joyous occasion, and it's a memory that stayed with me for a long time. And I've not been the biggest fan of Action Force and G.I.Joe throughout the years. It's only been the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years since I started watching the Retro Blasting channel and Michael and Melinda's love of G.I. Joe. That really got me back into toy collecting in general, and having a good look back at Action Force and G.I. Joe. And it was there, it was ready to play with, and that's what I did for the whole day. I played with this A.W.E Striker, and it had like working suspension, and a cannon on the back, and you could fit extra characters in it. I remember putting my mask figures, because the scale is close enough. They'd be later on in years come by. I'd picked up some more mask toys, and they were great to play with together. So yeah, the A.W.E is my first introduction into the world of Action Force. But as I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Action Force and G.I. Joe. It's just I was always so Transformers heavy, and Mask, and a few other bits and pieces in those sort of years that Action Force had prominence. And it wasn't until, I think, 2 years later, in 1987, for my birthday, I got the VHS of Action Force the movie, and once again it reignited my love. You know, the year before we'd had Transformers the movie, and we all know what an exceptional film that is. And then obviously the guys at Sambo and Hasbro and Marvel all wanted, you know, they wanted the success, or some success that had. Obviously didn't make its money back until years later, and they obviously made that huge faux pas with killing Optimus Prime. But I don't see that as a bad thing, Optimus Prime being killed. And that's definitely for another Let's Talk, the Transformers movie. And yeah, just first thing in the morning, opened up my other presents, and I just wanted to have that movie on. You know, again, it was just, I wasn't the biggest fan of Action Force, and then just seeing this movie, it was incredibly cool. It's such a great plot. Again, it's full of famous actors. You've got Don Johnson, which I had a love of Don Johnson from watching Miami Vice with my brother, as Lieutenant Falcon. It's got all the voices from the show, recognisable voices from Transformers. It's got Sergeant Slaughter, the WWF wrestler, in there, although he's called Sergeant Slammer in the UK. Again, let me go back to here. His Sergeant Slammer. And in terms of the movie, there's a couple of bits and pieces in it where it's, because it was released in the UK as Action Force, it's redubbed. So it does start off with them shouting "Yo Joe," and then there's just a couple of scenes where Duke goes into a coma. Well, in the original plotline, it's Duke actually gets killed. Oh, spoiler alert. Then again, you know, I'm talking about a 30-year-old film. It's hardly spoilers. Yeah, so Duke gets killed / into a coma. Obviously, that's the fallout of the death of Optimus Prime and the knock-on effect of that. You know, you can't kill off a beloved character like Duke. So he goes into a coma. And actually, Sergeant Slaughter, instead of saying "Yo Joe" in a soft, somber voice, he says "Full Force." And same again where Lieutenant Falcon is in the Terrordrome, trying to contact G.I. Joe or Action Force. He's there, literally, "Come in, Action Force, come in, Action Force." Subtle differences between, you know, the UK and America. And these are things that I've spoken about, bits and pieces like that. It's the little bits of flavour, the little nuggets of information that I can really delve into in terms of toy collecting and 1980s pop culture. So yeah, moving on from the movie, I watched it for, you know, the next following year, and we get to 1988, and I go on holiday with my parents to a quaint little town and village called Salcombe in Devon, and on a rainy day we head off to the next town called Kingsbridge, and I'd taken with me a little bit of my birthday money and pocket money and washing cars for £1, and I'd got £15 to spend on whatever the hell I wanted. You know, did I want an ice cream with a flake? Did I, you know, need to get a new bucket and spade? Did I, you know, need to get a fun holiday kind of thing to do? No, I wanted to go to this toy store, which sadly disappeared in 2000, which is a real shame because it was one of the best toy shops that I've been to in my whole life. I used to love. We used to go on holiday to this place like years and years, and I would always go into this toy store. And I went for a job interview there in 2000, whilst I was looking for a summer job in the break between university. 2000 to 2001 was the last year of my art design and media degree. This toy shop is so good. That toy shop was where I saw the classics, the gold boxed Transformers for the first time when they were re-released, and it's just, I loved going to this toy shop. It was very long, and at the back of the store was very much Hornby and model making bikes and big bits and pieces. But when you went to, you know, the front, it was whatever was prominent at the time, and you know, 87, 88, it was full on Transformers and Action Force, and I had £15, as I said, and there was Mercer, who is part of Sergeant Slaughter's group, who stormed the Terrordrome, and he's an ex-Cobra, who's seen the life, and it was $4.99. And I was just like, oh, I want to get this. You know, it's just like the movie. And then I can play with this on the beach, and I can play with it in the little apartment that we stayed in. And then I thought, oh, it's only £5. I've got loads of money. I've got £15. And my other favourite character from Action Force and G.I.Joe is Zartan. So, I was thinking I still got £10 left, and there was Zartan as well. And I picked up Zartan with the swamp skier. And Zartan's such a cool character, and the play value. I always talk about play value in my videos. He comes with. Just going to check if Zartan's actually. He's got to be on here. He's a key character. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to show it. I can show something else though in a bit when I get onto my wish list. Yeah, unfortunately Zartan's not on here. He came with a swamp skier that changed colour. So obviously I'm in the beautiful hot summer, and he came with the face mask that to hide his disguise, and the plastic changed from cream to blue, just like it did in the TV show. So yeah, that is the extent of Action Force toys for me in general until I got the Havoc last year, which, as I said, I'm going to come on to in a bit. The other experience I have of G.I. Joe and Action Force is my godparents. They emigrated, and their son, who was about 5 years older than me, he donated me his comic collection, and it was full of just absolutely random comics. And the one that really stood out to me, and the one that I have the fondest memory of, I don't remember too much of the other comics that were in that little bundle, but this is how clear the memory is for me. It was the Action Force comic number 10, and it was called Swamp Strike. And it had got two stories in it, and it was the second part of a Zartan story. So I think that probably why I loved Zartan so much. So I didn't know too much about the previous part of the story, but the other story was all about Bazooka and Lady J, and it was all about a Cobra defector that wanted to come and work with Action Force. And it was a really great story, and I loved it to this day. I think also because it featured the A.W.E striker, and it was the toy I had. And there's a beautiful panel where some Cobra operatives have stolen the wheels from it, and it's up on bricks. And I just remember that the front cover being really, really, really cool. Yeah, Swamp Strike. Other than that, I have no other kind of experiences of the Action Force comic. I know that it went to sort of monthly bits, and I saw them at the newsagents, but I never really picked them up. And it's a shame because the artwork is incredible. Some of the artwork's done by Mike Collins, and the artwork in the comics really looks like the box art on the boxes of the bigger toys, the bigger vehicles. So yeah, let's get on to the one thing I do have in my toy collection, which is the Havoc, the heavy articulated vehicle ordnance carrier, which is this awesomeness. Am I going to be able to get it all in shot? and this thing is absolutely phenomenal. I got it about a year ago, and it's literally sat in the box, completely unmade. And what a fool I am. Why have I not opened this sooner? I got it out for the first time the other day and built it. And it's just, it brought back the memories of the A.W.E striker straight away. And it was a brand new toy experience. I'd never built a Action Force vehicle before, and that was a hell of a lot of fun. It's just, I took my time over it, and I just wanted to make sure that every bit clicked in. I wanted the Havoc. After rewatching the movie a couple of years ago and watching bits from Retro Blasting, I wanted the Havoc. It's, you know, some of the beauty of the Action Force vehicles is they look like real life ones. So the first wave of toys that came out in '85, you know, you've got the Cobra Ferret, and let me think, what other ones do we have? We've got the whale, the hovercraft. You know, these are the Sky Striker, the Dragonfly Copter. They are all based completely on actual real life military vehicles. But the Havoc isn't. The Havoc is later on in the toy line, and it's starting to get a bit more fantasy. But I really like that, and it gets a bit of a showcase in the movie. So yeah, let's get it on camera. Let's start with the figure that it comes with, as it comes with cross country, and his colours are lovely, and the joy of G.I.Joe is it's got like the 5 points of articulation. There's so much movement to be had with Action Force figures, Joe figures. There's the camera. Sorry, guys. Yeah, he's great. Just, you know, he looks like he's got just such molded detail to such a tiny figure. So yeah, but you know, the main piece is the Havoc, and there's an incredible amount of moving parts. You've got the guns, the lasers at the front. The tracks move on both the front and the back. The cannon, again, is fully functional, and the canopy lifts, carries 2 people in the canopy, but literally this thing holds like 12 characters because there's little foot pegs to go there. You know, you've got cross country on the front, you've got Beachhead, you know, driving it. You've got the Rawhides, you know, you've got Chuckles going anywhere that you want. I'm just naming characters that I like. So yeah, let's. Put the canopy open and get cross country piloting it. Yeah, it's just play value again. Always play value and aesthetics. It's such a great toy, and the things with Action Force figures and the toys, it's the use of figures within a toy. It's something that Mask did so well, and Action Force. And to be honest, Diaclone as well. My Jason the Wheel Warriors figures, they go in, they sit in. I love interaction with figures and vehicles and play sets in general. Yeah, it's also got movable parts at the back. That comes down. And we have got, you know, a hover attack vehicle. Cross country can sit inside and pilot that. Yeah. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. So yeah, this is, you know, my I say latest purchase for Action Force, my only purchase for Action Force, which leads me on to ones that I would like. You know, I always talk about wish lists. That there is absolutely 2 or 3 that I want to get. I absolutely want to get the Thunder Machine, the Dreadnought Thunder Machine. It's definitely, there's a picture on here. This thing has been absolutely invaluable. I'm just hoping that the camera's going to pick it up. Yeah, the Thunder Machine. It's obviously got some American muscle car at the front, probably a Corvette or a Pontiac, and then it's just full of guns, rocket boosters. The Dreadnoughts were my favourite Cobra villains. You know, they're just buffoons with a lot of firepower and melee weapons, flamethrowers. They talk hilariously. Yeah, so that's definitely on my wish list. Part of my toy collecting, I think I've actually mentioned this before, is the dream for my collection is to have one goodie, one baddie. I'm good to go with my goodie, although I would like a lifeline to go with the Havoc, to recreate the box art. So yeah, so Lifeline's on there, and the Thunder Machine. And the other dream of my toy collecting experience is I always want to get a command center, a base. I know that in my wildest dreams I want to get Boulder Hill for Mask. I'm not saying I want to get the USS Flag. Obviously, you know, it's a holy grail for a lot of people, but it's a £2,000 table. And I would never have enough Joe figures, Action Force vehicles to go on the Flag. But I would like the transportable tactical battle platform, which it looks like the oil rig. I'd love to get something along the lines of a command center to display my figures on. But that, you know, that's the toy collecting dream. I don't have a big enough house. I don't have a big enough spare room where I keep my toys. As you can see, more and more keep sneaking downstairs, and I'm always trying to get them in different places. So yeah, there's a couple of bits from my wish list. So those have been my thoughts and experiences of Action Force and G.I. Joe. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle.